Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Weekly. I'm Gray.
And I'm Thomas.
Yes, so sorry. We came back, but then we didn't. But now we're kind of back, but we're not. So folks, life is crazy as one knows it, how what their experience is like under capitalism. It takes a toll on you. And I'm a student and I work on campus and I'm also a theater major, which means I also don't have a lot of free time, meaning I'm also in the rehearsal room 12 to 20 hours a week. So it's like another part-time job. And I don't have a lot of time on my hands. And Thomas, you're a manager at Sprouts and that's what is that like?
Oh, well, yeah, long hours.
Long hours.
Full time, long hours. Yeah. I'm also myself doing college work on top of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So we're both students. We both
Mhm.
don't have a lot of time on our hands. And so doing this show has been a little difficult, just finding time to do it. But we will be back in June when lives slow down a little bit. But we are here to talk about current events today. We're gonna switch things up a little bit. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it. And then we always end on a fun topic. So we'll keep it light today, okay, guys? All right. So we go ahead and share this article with y'all. Our first topic of the day is
Oh, yeah.
Republicans. Oh, don't we just love Republicans? They had voted to censure Montana's first transgender state legislature. So the House Republicans voted to censure Representative Zoe Zephyr from the House for allegedly encouraging protesters to disrupt their session. However, she was mainly speaking out against their anti-trans legislation. So the House voted 68 to 32 to censure Zephyr, and she will keep her position but will be barred from physically participating on the House floor.
Yeah.
She'll be able to vote and attend sessions only remotely for the rest of the legislative session, which ends on May 5th.
Yeah.
Wow, that is just it's oh, it just gets to me, Thomas. Like just
Yeah.
as someone who's non-binary, who's finally getting into their you know, comfortable with their sense of identity. I'm just like see, we finally get into that position and we think, okay, we're making progress. We we were able to get the first trans person in Montana into a very high position, and we're being silenced.
Mhm.
Our community is being silenced, and that's the thing that pisses me off when people say that we're making gender too big of a deal. Like, no, it is a big deal because there's people in other states telling us to shut the fuck up
Mhm.
when we are just trying to be ourselves.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Tom, just go ahead and give me your take on this.
Yeah. I think this is obviously the trans panic, if I phrase it that way, is just it's sort of it's become the Republicans sort of, like, I mean, conservatives have always had like a they'll just attack one culture war type thing, and then they'll just stick to it. And it's just become their sort of like, yes, we can maybe we can create a wedge issue to kind of hide behind all the shitty, like, all the shitty politics that they would like to bring in. It's just like we're just going to create this boogeyman of like of an issue that it just isn't an issue, and this isn't affecting anybody's lives other than like the people who need healthcare. You know, like trans
Yeah.
people need help. You know what I mean? It's not affecting anyone else, but the people that are being affected by this type of like this type of just aggressive shutdown of any debate, any policy, like and it's just I think what's concerning is that I mean we've seen it before, but the reality is that when push comes to shove, you know, we call this system democracy, but the reality is that when they don't like hearing a debate, they'll push very quickly to shut down that debate and to shut down any voice that's coming from a different side of how they see things.
Yeah.
And it's worrying, particularly in like states in the South, and you know, with the gerrymandering, and you know, they're entrenching this to keep it this way. Um, and it's yeah, and it's just unfortunate you've
Mm.
got the other side of the aisle that's not they're not playing the same game, and that's where it's becoming a problem. They're not realizing that the game is
Mhm.
they'd rather play a different game, which is, yeah, we're just not gonna allow this to take place.
Yeah, yeah, like literally, in Tennessee, we had the Nashville shooting, and they're like, "Oh, criminals will always be criminals," you know, like literally there was this one lawmaker saying that. And then when it came to drag queens, they were like, "We will not tolerate this. We're going to stop this." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, so your priorities are to cause genocide. Great." And it is. Zoe Zephyr was literally talking about on the Montana House floor, talking about how these laws are so harmful to the trans community. We have a 60% survival rate. 60%. 40% of trans people commit suicide. That's a fact.
Yeah.
It's a known statistic. I always remember that number. And like I said, like some of us are finally feeling comfortable in our own identity, and now we have to like make a decision. Do we have to go back? Do we have to move? Some people have to move now. Some people
With
literally are fleeing states.
what we're seeing is a replay of the panic around gay people in the 70s and the 60s, and the you know we're reliving that same like hate campaign that went on during that period. And you know it's doubling down now, because I mean you see it all across, not just with this issue, but you're seeing it in like school boards where like people are trying to censor what kind of books can be displayed in certain places, like what you know what can be even educated to kids, because they just don't like the content of what's being of history or what's being educated to
Mhm.
kids. And you're just seeing it all over. This we need to sense like their debate, and their side is saying like we just need to shut down the debate on this entirely, just shut it down as if it doesn't exist, and
Yeah.
declare it an evil and a threat.
So, Thomas, went ahead and started talking about censorship, and that is the perfect segue for this next topic, which is the Bonita Unified School District in Laverne and San Dimas, California, which is in Los Angeles County, literally here,
Mhm.
has decided to ban certain books um, that are LGBTQ plus, and yeah, the fact that that's here. Um, and I mean, you live in Laverne, So
Yeah.
it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and show you a TikTok that best summarizes the story, and we will be back with our thoughts.
Mhm.
So the far right got away with another book ban, except this time it's not in Florida, it's in Los Angeles County. Yes, I'm serious. They banned The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison and Beyond Magenta by Susan Coupland in the Bonita Unified School District. This was the result of a pressure campaign by right-wing activists who personally thanked the superintendent of Bonita Unified School District. I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that the book bans from Republicans have now reached Los Angeles, California, and that they are banning black and queer authors, legendary authors. Toni Morrison, come on. This stuff is not just happening in Florida. It's not just happening in the Midwest. It's happening here. This ban affects 14 schools, from elementary all the way to high schools. The right-wing activists aren't done yet. They have more books on their list of targets to ban. There's a complete media blackout about this story. Nobody is talking about it.
Thomas, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts around, well, I have a few thoughts about the education system here, but the reality is, when I was growing up in the UK, um, all public schooling fell through one system. It was a combination of Ofcom, which is a regulator, a separate regulator, separate from the national education, the people who figure out what we do for each year of of education or whatever. And you'd have a national set of texts and books, and it was all, you don't have the same thing here where each school board dictates what kind of books we teach what kids, what kind of curriculums we do for what, so here, like, you live in one county, or you live in another state, or you live in another city, another town, like, you could have a completely different learning experience because it's all different school boards, all different, like, you have elections for school board districts, like, so it's all very, like, mingled with different ways of teaching. And the what leads to this, and what we've seen here, is we've seen hardcore conservatives take local elections seriously, um, because they want to have policy affected on the local ground, and that's what's happening with these book bannings. They're really targeting um, the public school system, like local councils. Like, they're really going after, because they want to shut stuff down. And this is where a state level education board needs, I think, should be implemented to stop this kind of thing from happening. Like single schools or districts shouldn't be allowed to just ban books,
Mhm.
when a county down the road could still be teaching the kids that same book, just because that board decided didn't like that book.
Mhm.
uh, because it affects, and I also think it's a multifaceted issue. I think conservatives are also trying to destroy the public education sector. So it's a combination of things. They want to undermine public education and public schooling,
Mhm.
and they also, it's not good enough for them to have their own school. They don't want other kids to have access to schools that teach them about things that they don't like to hear about.
Yeah,
So
which
it's
is science. The fact that queer people exist, the fact that Black people exist, the fact that Asian people exist, the fact
yeah.
that Native people exist. I can go on and on and on. The fact that anything that isn't not white, not Christian, not cisgendered, not heteronormative is a threat to them. It really is. It's a threat to their attempt to control everything. It's very scary because this is not the first time. America's known for book burnings. That's why the Nazis did it. Like people saying, "Oh my God, this is like a repeat of history with the Nazis." I'm like, honey, no, 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 no. No. The Nazis knew what they were doing because they saw us do it first.
Yeah. I was gonna say for a long time, what a lot of people who they don't like certain things being taught in certain schools. They like the very ignorant families and people. What they did in the past is decide, you know what, we're going to set up our own private school so we can teach what we want,
Mhm.
or we're going to set up our own private religious school so we can get away with teaching what they want to
That
teach,
just
right?
shouldn't be
But
allowed.
what I'm saying is now that's not good enough now.
Mhm.
That it's got to a point where that even their own spaces isn't good enough for them anymore.
Yeah.
They just don't want it to exist, period. And it kind of spilled. The same thing happened. The same thing has been happening in the UK. We've had a spillover with religious schools um, trying to not teach like national curriculum books because they don't agree with it. And this is where I personally believe there needs to be, either at the state level or at the federal level, there needs to be like protections in like student curriculums. Like there needs to be protections like the civil rights like the civil rights legislation. There needs to be protections in teaching
Mm.
people
Well,
history
we
books.
we need. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I was just gonna say we need a more adequate public education system because, first of all, we're funding our public education system based off of property tax or
Uh-huh.
property value,
Mhm.
and that's already a problem. And it's first, it's not just a financial problem, but it's also a racism problem
Yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
racist.
Yeah.
The poor communities are obviously not white. They are disenfranchised, and top it off of, if basing it off of their property value, they're not getting the adequate funding, therefore they're not getting the adequate education.
Right.
Oh wow. So now you're purposely letting a group of people, a population of people, to be not as educated as another group of people. Okay, that is that's a red flag, folks. Like, come on. That
Yeah.
alone, like the fact that we still do that is, it's insane. It Every school district should be equally funded by the government. Like
Yeah.
that's just ridiculous that we still do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the like obviously America's sort of the system's built differently where you have elections for like school boards and it's a more democratic process. But the downside is that what we're seeing is
Mhm.
we're seeing at a low. This is where I believe ordinary people who care about books not being banned. It's kind of a fascist red flag going on.
Mhm.
Is that we need people to be more involved in the small local elections because
And
the
these people aren't teachers,
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
The fact that these people aren't teachers,
yeah,
that is a extremely red flag. Like, I
because
don't.
they've made it their war, and that's the
Mhm.
problem. And I think ordinary people, especially parents who care about their kids curriculum and
Mhm.
being taught like it needs to be more involvement, or there needs to be some
Mhm.
form of like state protection against there needs to be a mandated curriculum that every school board to protect against this type of behavior of silencing or you know getting rid of books that they don't like to read. Like I have a prime example, right? When I grew up in my secondary school,
Mhm.
uh, I had to do John Steinbeck in my English literature class, right?
That's a
John
good offer.
Steinbeck books, there's a lot of books here that are banned. Grapes of Wrath is banned in certain states and certain school boards. Of
Of Mice
Mice
and
and
Men.
Men is now also being banned, and I'm like, as an American
John
author,
Steinbeck was a socialist. Of course he's banned.
but I'm saying he's an American author, and you
Mhm.
have the US banning an American author in their own school districts and
Yeah.
public schools, and I came from a British school that did John Steinbeck as an English lit. Um, I had to do an essay on it, so it's, you know what I mean. So it's harmful to the like it's harmful to America. Like I said, it's not only is harmful to you're
Mhm.
hurting your own and you're hurting your own
Mhm.
people. But I guess if the reasoning for it is to not get your feelings hurt,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah. Well, let's it yeah. The fact that it's here though, the fact that it's not happening everywhere. That's my issue.
yeah,
But let's go ahead and move on. Our next story is good old the Democrats. Marianne Williamson knocks DNC over lack of debates as Biden campaign launches. So she went ahead and tweeted like the DNC plans no primary debates, as though there simply are no other candidates, no other ideas we should discuss about ways to win 2024, or other ideas we should discuss about ways to repair the country. Too many people are too smart to accept this. She goes on saying that her criticism towards the DNC comes as President Biden's well, he has already announced this is a couple days old, but but she's previously accused the DNC of creating a rigged primary process. Now we all remember 2016 and we also remember 2020.
yeah,
Were we expecting this? I was.
yeah,
I was. And the mere fact, if they're going to do this, they cannot say our democracy is at risk. They need to stop running that democracy bullshit because you yourselves are being undemocratic. And this is another thing that pisses me off. If the Republicans have more than two candidates running, and if they end up having primary debates, then the DNC really should reconsider, because then that would make the Republicans more democratic than the Democrats.
Well, and
Go ahead and give me your take.
the other issue is that the Republicans will, they'll have all the TV space because they'll have all the debates on TV. You see what I mean? So the problem is it's twofold. Like it'd be different if Joe Biden was running unopposed. This would be different, right? But he's not. There's clear challenges, and in a healthy democracy, in a system that is revolved around primary debates, then yes. The problem is the precedent the DNC is using is that it's not historically, they historically don't do debates against one of their own who's already president. But like the problem is, you look at all the polling, you look at, over 70% of Democrats, not just everyone, but Democrats particularly, want someone other than Joe Biden to run in 2024, which is a testament to how little he's done with his time in office. And how little he's adhered to keeping the promises he said he would keep. And it's a testament to the fact that Trump was so terrible that people were willing to vote for Joe Biden. And I think
that's the thing that they kind of hold us hostage. A lot of us, and that's that just shows the problem of our two-party system. Like, we need a multi-party system. at least 5 parties, like, to cover all the bases. You have your 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 left, center, right, center, and right. Like, I mean, we unfortunately have to compromise as a country, but and so everyone's going to have a broad spectrum of ideology, and you need parties to cover that. And we
Yeah.
don't. You're clumping all the crazies together. Yeah. King Charles's coronation is coming up. In fact, we're recording this on April 30th. So, oh my God, this Saturday, King Charles is getting coronated.
Oh my God.
Oh wow. It's pretty crazy because it's costing. So I'm gonna go ahead and share this with y'all, okay? So it's going to cost a whopping £100 million. £100 million. So basically it's gonna be doubled Queen Elizabeth's coronation. In 1953, it was the most expensive ceremony ever held by the monarchy at the time, costing £1.57 million,
Oh my God.
modern equivalent to £56 million. So it is
Wow.
doubling the price tag. So yeah.
Damn, that's a lot of money. In 1953, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It goes on saying how, like, even in the 1937 coronation of King George VI, it was less than £1 million.
Yeah.
And also King Charles is calling to swear allegiance to the king at the coronation, basically describing how they want them to swear allegiance because of a lot of the anti-monarchy protests that will be taking place as well. Thomas, what's your feeling on all this? Are you excited? No, I'm kidding.
Well, to that question, no. But I, it's funny because I was chatting with my parents this morning, and they obviously they're there in England, so they're getting the full brunt of the media blitz. Every time they turn on the television, and it's
Is there also a bank holiday?
yes. So what happens, and this is kind of how they kind of gently ease people. So one of the things that the monarchy can still do is they can enact a bank holiday weekend for anything royally related or important. And it effectively gives people, people are not going to say no. It's a paid day off work. Not for everyone, which is another issue, but for people who work in like an office setting or like some form of like job that doesn't mean they have to be in a retail store, or you know what I mean, like jobs which are like, they get them basically. They can shut the office and go home. Yeah, so there's that, because they obviously want people to tune in and watch. And secondly, it's so on the nose of what's happening in the world right now. UK just is still going through and was going through a huge energy crisis involving gas, that was basically leading to people switching off the gas in the winter and freezing to death.
Oh my goodness.
People were dying. Older people were dying because they couldn't afford to heat their homes. And it's just so you know, obviously everyone's feeling a cost of living crisis right now around the world, but it's so, you've got this amount of splurge money on a hereditary, archaic feudal system at the same time where people are being told to shut up and swear your allegiance to some, gold related bloodline. Um,
Mhm.
you can see my thoughts on this. But the reality is that it's from my personal view, this system is just is just a rollover of an archaic feudal system that was never fully eradicated. And I think the reality is that we have people in the UK who are so poor that they're turning off their energy.
Yeah.
You've got food bank usage is up to record numbers. The amount of people are having to go to a food bank just to feed themselves. In fact, food banks have been crying out because they're not getting enough food to give to people. So even the food banks themselves are having to shut because they're not getting enough food to give out. It just there's an accumulation of issues, and you've got this overly unnecessary expenditure paid for by people for a bloodline that inherited this title because 400 years ago they killed a few people and decided to declare that they were the leaders of
Mhm.
this realm. So yeah.
Wow. Must be infuriating. It's gosh. I would be livid if I mean, look at the costs of the inaugurations.
the
And
wedding
huh?
the weddings,
Oh no,
not just
I'm
the
talking about here in
inauguration.
the States, the
Oh,
inauguration.
sorry. Mhm.
Let's look at like even Mayor Bass's inauguration clearing a bunch of unhoused people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not as big of a scale as, the coronation of King Charles, but I mean, hell, like if we're kind of doing the same thing here, I mean, do you expect people to care? It's really sad, but it's disgusting that we're pouring all this money and resources while people are starving and can't pay the bills and are dying
You
because of
know, yeah, yeah. And I think what real boils me over is, look, we say America's the freest country in the world. We know that's kind of like a wool over your eyes type deal, right? We know that this is kind of like a corrupt, sketchy country, right? But England, for all its faults, we still have this. We still tell ourselves that this archaic feudal remnant is somehow a part of our identity or a part of our culture or a part of who we are. And I challenge my English brethren to basically, really, really look in and go, this is not our history, right?
Mhm.
You look back, look at the history of monarchy and look at how devastating and terrible it was to the average folk of England, of this country. The way that they would willfully treat people, it's effectively a caste system, and these
Mm,
people treated you like nothing, and they still do. They have all this pomp now. They have all the TV and all the media stuff that they have now to try and repair some of this public image of what they really are, what this really is. But what it fundamentally comes down to is that, do you want this country to be an actual democracy going forward? Do you want to even appear to be in a democracy going forward? Or
mhm.
do you want to just accept that we're going to have this, this special bloodline is going to get this special title and all this money forever because what? Because of history? Because this is always how it's been.
A German family, I may add.
Well, and the families, the history of monarchy, particularly in England, is, it's all over the place. The reality is they just happen to be the last family that kept hold of it. And I think reality is that really this should have been done away with after the First World War, particularly the family being involved in the war, the ones that caused the war, very much a part of it. And then even after the Second World War, they should have been shamed.
Well, yeah, King Edward was literally in bed with Hitler.
That's what I'm saying, and they try and hide that now, but the reality is that this family existing in the status that is existing in this system that we keep in place is a needle in the side of what we want moving forward as a democratic country. They're gonna forever try and put a foothold on their place in this system. They're gonna forever try and keep the powers that they have, and on top of that, they're gonna try in any way they can to wriggle some form of, there'll always be a thorn in the side of what we would like to see in a democratic country.
Yeah.
Exist. It cannot coexist. It should not try to coexist. And I think too many English people in the UK are just swayed by the pomp, they're swayed by the idea that this is our cultural identity. It's not our cultural identity. This isn't who we are.
You can say the same thing when it comes to, the South.
Yeah.
This is our cultural identity. No, it's racism, sweetie. Like, the monarch is also racism, sweetie. But anyway, moving on to a lighter subject, also involving the UK. Let's go ahead and bring that up. The former Prime Minister Liz Truss was caught stealing 12,000 pounds in missing bathrobes. So yeah, Liz Truss refuses to pay 12,000 pounds in missing bathrobes. The former prime minister demands accurate invoice after being asked to settle cabinet office bill for lost items, and whining and dining at grace and favor at the estate that I guess that they live at. But 12,000 pounds in bathrobes.
And I must highlight for American viewers, when we say 12,000 pounds, we mean in currency, not in actual weight.
Oh yeah. Because thank you, because we're not the brightest people. As we were talking about our public school system earlier.
But what makes this story funny is that she was only in office for 45 days. So, for 45 days, she's managed to shift out a bunch of stuff that belongs to the estate of the taxpayer.
I've had jobs longer than that.
And she's able to steal 12,000 pounds worth of towels, bathrobes, slippers, all sorts of stuff from the estate. It sounds, it sounds very much like what Trump did after he left office. He left and took a bunch of stuff to Mar-a-Lago. Do you remember that? Do you remember the story where
I didn't even know that happened.
You don't know that happened?
No.
They took a bunch of they wanted to take a load of stuff from the White House. Like they took a load of presidential memorabilia and all sorts of stuff.
But that's stuff that you can keep though, right?
Well, it's still technically part. This is, like I said, this is all funded by the government.
Yeah.
It's all owned by the estate of said government, but they're just taking what they can, I guess, before they leave office.
Well, for me, it reminds me of this episode of Friends where Ross and Chandler go upstate, and Ross is basically explaining to Chandler like what you can steal from the hotel, and like he stole like the soaps, and he's like, you can't steal the remote, but the batteries you can. You can't steal the lamp, but the light bulbs you can.
I,
And then
yeah.
at the end of the episode, they're leaving, and Ross's suitcase gets undone, and all the shit that they
All the stuff
stole
falls in.
like falls to the ground. Oh my god, that's how I picture Liz Truss like leaving the residence of the prime minister's office, just like
You know, and it's a testament to how, you know, we know, I mean, for British viewers watching, we know how corrupt the government has become over the span of 20 years. It's so openly corrupt, and there's no accountability whatsoever with people's time in office. There's no accountability for criminal behavior. I
yeah.
mean, even at the estate's residence, they were throwing parties involving drug-fueled, cocaine, and there were ounces of white powder found, and the hypocrisy of it, because in reality, I am for drug legalization, but these people will stand on the pedestal and go, no, this should stay illegal because, it's anyway, that's another thing.
Yeah,
But the
that's
reality,
that's
but the
another
reality,
episode. Go check it out.
but the reality is that it's just, I think it's hilarious that someone can fail so high up and still make out like a bandit with all this stuff.
Hey, if my boss is watching this, don't listen to this next part. But I've stolen from previous jobs so many like times. Like in my office jobs, I would steal like office supplies like binders, markers, like school supplies, I mean, now I don't have to steal that shit anymore because I got my iPad. But and I've gone like digital now, which is great. Fuck paper. But like, let's just say I used to work at retail, and on my last day, I may have slipped $100 into my pocket, let's just say it was payback from not paying me a decent wage, Wait, what's it called? If it's chain, it's free gain. But yeah. Well, folks, that concludes our episode of Let's Talk Weekly. I'm Gray.
And I'm Thomas.
All right, y'all. And I will see y'all in June. We'll see y'all in June, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.
In a bit.